Right. Well, hi, folks. This is Steven. And volume all looks good. So let's just go over the agenda for today's live stream. We're going to be going over a couple of things. We've got half an hour blocked out here. And got kind of three parts to it. Well, we're going to be talking mostly about the Celesetial Storm pre-release that I went to today. Let's see, and sort of what a pre-release is, how that works, and all that stuff. So after that, we'll probably go into some Q&A. I have a few show and tell items not related to the pre-release, and sort of give you a little update on how the channel is moving forward. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type those into the chat. We always want those. And I can always stay on a little longer if we get a good number of questions. But anyway, so today was the Celestial Storm pre-release in Madison. And, Celestial Storm is the upcoming TCG set. It comes out in stores officially on Wednesday, although some stores do get the privilege of starting a little bit earlier. But pre-release is done the 2 weekends before the set launches. And the way it works is you get a little box like this. This is the Celestial Storm one. And so where you go from there is the box contains a variety of things. First of all, there's 4 booster packs from the set. There's also what's called an Evolutions pack. In the old days of pre-releases, you would get 6 booster packs to go, and you would just build whatever you had plus basic energies. And that didn't, I guess the Pokemon Company and a lot of other folks felt didn't show off the game particularly well, especially once we got to do like the EX era with in the 5th generation, the capital E, capital X era, and got some of those Pokemon in there. And people would play like one of those and a bunch of energy and stuff like that. And that still occasionally happens, but it's much less common with these evolution packs. But I went to the store, got my stuff. So the evolution pack, there are usually, I believe, 4 different ones, although there's usually, these days at least, some overlap between them. What I got was the Manectric Swampert setup. So what happened here is you get, the thing focuses on 2 specific evolution cards. There was actually a 3rd evolution line, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But you got Manectric and Swampert. And there was a very heavy, I would say, Gen 3 theme with this set for whatever reason. A lot of the cards, some of them are direct reprints. Some of them are very similar to previous cards. Some of them use the same art. I think we could talk a little bit about that. But in any case, I decided to build my deck around these 2 Pokemon, as well as a 3rd Pokemon that came in my thing there. Let's see. Yes. Lantern. So Lantern is pretty neat. We'll talking about the kind of the overall strategy I came up with in a little bit. So I've got about 15 or so cards. We may not go through all of them. But I want to talk about Manectric, because I think that's the one that's most likely to have some sort of competitive play, although I'm not really sure with what. I'm not aware of too many good electric or lightning decks in the current tournament format, although I'm not as up on that as maybe I used to be. I know that sort of the major decks, there's some pretty big fighting decks right now at the moment, so that's probably keeping lightning decks from being super popular. But first off, I would take a look at the ability here. So this is a very interesting, unusual ability. And first off, you can only use it when you go 2nd. And second of all, it lets you place it as if it were an unevolved Pokemon. It's technically not a basic Pokemon because of some nomenclature type stuff in the trading card game, but you get to play it as your starting active Pokemon. And it's got a nice little attack there, double charge for 40, does 40 damage, which is pretty nice for 1 energy, and you get to attach some energy from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon. So this actually encouraged me to sort of experiment a little bit and choose to go 2nd. Now, remember, the way the trading card game currently works is that the game, you determine who goes first before you draw any cards. It has varied throughout the course of the game, and if it ever changes again, this card, they'll have to errata it or something if that ever happens again, if it's still somehow in the format. But But in any case, so you're kind of taking a risk there. And I had two of these because there was the promo one, and there's also another one with a different art that's from the actual set that's in my starter pack. I wasn't fortunate enough to get any more from the booster packs that I picked up there. But I thought it was kind of worth the risk, and it did work. We only played 3 games in our pre-releases, and in the second game, I got to go second, and I started with that, and worked out reasonably well. It can be a little difficult in pre-release to draw enough cards to get enough energy to where double charge lets you attach more energy. But I have a feeling that under the right conditions, that card will probably see some competitive play. Let's see. Next up, the other sort of major part of my deck is Swampert. So, of course, it's the fully evolved form of Mudkips. And yes, I did make a Mudkip joke in one of my games. I think I'm required by law to do that. I think sort of the big deal is, well, the attack is quite nice. For 3 energy, 80. And then if you use water energy, you get to do more and more damage, which was very useful. I never ended up using the ability to discard and then draw stuff. I generally had enough draw support, and in the pre-release, your deck is only 40 cards to begin with. So you can run out very quickly if you're not careful. But as an attacking Pokemon, I think this did reasonably well. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Lantern. Lantern is actually a pretty decent card, I would say. The ability is nice. What it lets you do is when one of your Pokemon is knocked out by, let's see, focus, there we go. By damage from an attack, you get to move a basic energy card from there to it. And the attack does 70 for 3 energy, which is not super great. But if you discard the lightning, you get 140. So I'm not expecting to see this do too great in tournaments or anything like that, but I think it was pretty interesting and a good choice for the starter packs in the pre-release. So let's see. So that was sort of the basic gist of my deck. I did put in a couple tech Pokemon. Put in Love Disc, which is this card right here, which lets you actually search for basic Pokemon equal to the number of Pokemon on your opponent's bench, which I think is really useful. The 24 plus sleep for 2 colors isn't terrible. Might be a good stall tactic sometimes. Let's see. I also put in a Baltoy that had 2 colorless for 20 plus chance of paralysis as sort of a tech, because I knew there would be a decent number of lightning-based decks. One of the cards that is, I think, basically a reprint. I think it's identical to its previous one, but I can't say for sure. I don't know if you can use the original version, but this is the old 3rd generation Dunsparce with, there we go, Strike and Run. Which is a fun little attack, if I say so myself. You get to search for basics, and you get to put those on your bench, and you can swap it if you want to. This was actually fairly big back in the day. I can't say it's not every deck uses it by any means, but there was definitely some as a searcher, and I think it worked out pretty well there, actually. And then it's got the Sudden Flash, which lets you sort of stall there. Dunsparce is, I guess, a Pokemon they've never really been sure what to do with in the trading card game. It's not what I would call a gimmick Pokemon like Kecleon or Ditto or something like that. But this was probably one of the more interesting ones. Okay. Now, I mentioned there being a lot of reprints here. That's pretty true of like the trainer cards. Here's a couple choices right here. Underground Expedition, which lets you look at the bottom 4 cards and pick one up. TV Reporter, and also a reprint. And then you got How with some, I would say, more aggressive art there. More determined art is probably a better way of putting that. But kind of a nice little set. I mean, How obviously is almost never going to see competitive play, but it is fine in a limited format. Let's see what else we got in here. So yeah, I told you this was a 3rd generation set. So you got your Sceptile is one of the other fully evolved starters, of course. So that's in there. It's got an interesting ability that interacts with Ultra Beasts. Excuse me, protects your Pokemon from those under certain conditions, which is kind of nice. All right, what else we got? We got Slacking, which has it's lazy. I don't think this will see any competitive play. I don't think it's particularly useful. It's just kind of funny. One that might right here is Metagross. This is a reverse foil, so I'm not sure how well it'll show up on camera. Let's see, give it a second to focus. I want to cover this. Okay, come on. There we go. It's got an ability that has to do with a supporter card, which I'm not, unfortunately, kind of not familiar with. It's something with Steven Stone, but I don't remember exactly how it works or what it does. By the way, it looks like we do have someone in there. If you want to give us a comment about any questions about the pre-release or the channel or Pokemon music, I will be talking about some of our upcoming stuff relatively soon. But the attack is kind of interesting. One metal energy to 60, which is, even for a stage 2, that's pretty good. But on your next turn, if you use it again, it does 120. So I think this could potentially see some use if someone can figure out a good way to use it. Certainly, if you were like in a no EX/GX tournament for some reason, you might want to consider this as an option. If you run special tournaments like that, can't be sanctioned, of course, but you get the idea there. But that was also, I believe, in one of the other evolution packs. Let's see, I got a Prism Star card. I got Latios, which unfortunately not a particularly, I would say, useful card in the pre-release because you need evolved dragon Pokemon, and I think there's like Bagon, so I would need like Shelgon and Salamence, so it looks nice. Not going to do you a lot of good in the pre-release itself. Let's see. Yes, I picked up this Regirock just because I think it's kind of neat. It might see some play. That first attack for 20 for a fighting plus more if you have a tool can be pretty neat. Although Buzzwole kind of Baby Buzzwole kind of fills in that spot a little bit, but I would say keep an eye on this one. And let's see, I was actually pretty fortunate with the number of packs I bought. What I got, I got this Electrode GX. It has sort of its standard energy as a sacrifice for this Pokemon ability. Let's see. I won't make sure you read all of that. You probably can't. But like I said, you knock it out, you get a bunch of energy from it. Remember, it's the GX, so you get 2 prizes off of that. So not sure that that's worth it. Okay, so next up, I got a full art Apricorn Maker. I guess that's supposed to be... I don't know if that actually is Kurt. It doesn't really... I don't think the clothing looks quite right. I'd have to look up a picture. He's only in like 1 or 2 episodes anyway. And... of course, we all know in the anime, he still got that GS ball somewhere that fell into sort of a plot hole type of deal there. But this lets you look for 2 different ball cards. So I think this could be interesting. You definitely want to get those Ultra Balls and some other things. I'm thinking of putting this in my expanded round deck that I still have lying around since I used the Aqua. I can't remember, the ball that lets you get the water Pokemon, as well as the repeat ball. Let's see. I also got this Scissor GX. Not sure how much I want to say about this one. It's got an ability when it gets close to nothing on health. That comes in handy. Come on, focus. Yeah, so I'm using my webcam here that I used at U.S. Nationals, or not, North American Internationals. While I wait for this to focus. There we go. Yeah, the resolution is probably not as good just because my upload connection here is not particularly great, to be quite honest. But I do find it kind of interesting. It has some decent attacks. Now, here's a card I did not use in my deck. I thought about it, but then I realized something. So here is Minun. Now, one thing they do in the trading card game quite frequently is on the Minun and Plusle cards, you'll be able to see the other one in the art somewhere. They've done a variety of things, but this one time they had them so that they sort of laid side by side, and you could sort of do this infinite series or whatever you want to call it. But you notice the first attack, it says ditch and draw. And what it does is it lets you ditch cards from your hand and then draw until you have 5. Kind of the problem I have with this is that in a pre-release, you often get stuck with a very large number of cards in your hand, especially if the set doesn't have N or some other thing that sort of knocks you down on cards. So drawing up to a certain number of cards isn't as useful as you might think in one of these. You're going to have a pretty big hand for most of the game there. 2 energy for 30 is kind of okay. I wish I knew what I'm sure the plus will do something semi-similar, but yeah. So let's see. And a couple new trainer cards with this set. So let's see. We've got, let's see, Tate and Liza, the twins of that, and I guess going along, maybe because they're twins or whatever, this card gives you two options. You can either shuffle your hand to your deck and draw 5 cards, so it's a shuffle drawer, or you can choose to swap your active Pokemon point event, so it can be a switch there. So definitely something you want to use in the pre-release. Not sure how it'll fare in the main tournament. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure how good this'll be either. This is the Masked Royal. I mean the Masked Royal, of course. Didn't quite deliver that right, but this basically lets you attach an extra energy to one of your Stage 2 fully evolved. Let's see, I think it's what Grass, Water, or Fire Pokemon. So I could technically have used this, but with all the other energy acceleration in my deck, I don't think this is terribly necessary. And I'm not sure using support to get extra energy. There's usually better ways to do that. So I'm not sure how useful this is going to be, but nice to see them using that. All right, one interesting new item card that I saw is called, oh, okay, Last Chance Potion. I did end up using this in my deck. I did end up using it in one of my games there. So basically, it lets you heal a bunch of damage as long as your Pokemon doesn't have a lot of health to be left. So now you got to be really careful if you've got someone very near to knocked out and you need a small amount of damage to get them. They can play this. The bottle totally reminds me of like sort of the packaging you would see when I was in Japan a couple years ago on things like that. It's got a little Dunsparce if you look very closely on it, and sort of the fake language. It looks a little bit vaguely Japanese, but you get the idea there. Find this to be a very interesting card. In certain decks, I think it's going to be pretty good there. Okay, so those were sort of the cards. If you have any questions about the set or the pre-release, we did not get a ton of attendance on this one. I believe our attendance number was 21, which is kind of well below what we would normally hope for. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that there are a lot of reprinted cards in this set. Some of them are little reprints. Some of them are very similar to cards from like the 3rd generation. Let's see. Oh, Lycia is another fun one there. It lets you search for Prism Star cards. So potentially, if you have a deck that's very heavily leveraged on it, that could be something. But I really do want to say, though, that I think this was a really good pre-release set in terms of the mechanics of the games that you actually played there. And I really kind of wish I was going to Worlds this year so I could, in the side events area, play some more of these using these sets, because I think they did a really good job here. Let me give you an example of something I would run into. One of the Pokemon in this set, I don't think I have one on me anywhere. I'll take a quick look through my cards and see if I've got that. But there is a Swalot, and it's got 100. Oh, I do have one. Yes. Yes. All right. So this is 120 HP. It's got Amnesia for 30, which is a pretty decent attack in and of itself for one colorless. It can be pretty useful in a limited format. But Swallow Up is kind of interesting and made me think a lot. I didn't have one of these in my deck, but I played against a couple of them and had to really think around them. Because what these ones do is that, of course, if you have more HP remaining than your opponent's active Pokemon, you do a lot more damage here. And so manipulating things were how I kind of had to work with that. In case you're curious, my record was 2-0-1. That means I had 2 wins, no losses, 1 draw. In the draw game, I had to be kind of careful around there, and we went to time. That's why it drew. But I had to try and damage his Swalot and some of his other Pokemon just enough so that some of my Pokemon wouldn't get hit with the full force, because I'd much rather get Amnesia, especially since the Manectric that I showed earlier has no retreat cost. So that's another thing I think is going to make it an interesting card if the fates align, if you know what I mean there. All right. So let's see. Take a look through here, see if there's anything else. Yeah, I don't know. I think they've had a tendency to change like the fully evolved forms of the Pokemon because of like the fifth generation HP creep would have made them not very useful if they still were stuck with that lower HP cap. Like you would not see a Lantern, with 110 HP in the third generation. You'd probably see 80 or 90, and that's how things have kind of changed now. Of the two Mudkips, there are two Mudkips in the set. This is the one I tried to use more of. I think I kind of like this one better, but the other one has some damaging attacks. This one has more of a setup attack. Lets you search your deck for water energy. Let me know how the quality is out there. Like I said, with the limited upstream bandwidth, I'm not sure what the resolution is. Let's see. I want to take a look at this a little bit later and see how things are going on there. All right. Well, yeah, so some original cards, but like I said, some of these are, I think, literal reprints with the same art. Let's see what else we got in here. Just want to check through here. Any questions? Go ahead and put on there. Oh, and here's what the regular Manectric in the set looks like. Exact same attacks and HP. You notice it has 110, so the Swallow has 120. So that's one reason I had to be very careful, is because the Swallow Up does, if you have more HP, is 120 damage. So getting some little chip damage from like the Chinchou I have has Spark, which can do damage to the bench. That gets it to where it's not going to one-shot things as easily with Swallow. Because if your opponent gets Swallow going, they can really get stuff. And the Metagross, like I said, also a very good card there, and kind of hard to get around, but I did kind of manage that. Let's see. Oh, here's the Baltoy. You always want to look for Pokemon that can attack for one or two colorless energies and do a decent amount of damage and possibly status condition. Those are very helpful for like going up against weakness and stuff like that, because I knew there'd be a lot of lightning Pokemon in the format, so I figured having something that could do 20, 10 or 20 and possible paralysis could be helpful. It didn't come into play in any of the games I played. Okay, I think that's gonna maybe do it for the trading card game. Oh, and here we go. Here's Copycat once again. This is the fourth or fifth time that's been printed, I think. Maybe sixth. I'm not sure exactly how many. It originally came out, I think, in late Gen 2. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the set. Like I said, not a super popular pre-release, but I think from a battling perspective, I think it's actually one of the better pre-release type sets they've done, especially under the new format we've been using for like a couple of years now with the Evolution pre-packs. Okay, well, thank you for being patient, folks. Let me sort of explain to you what's going on with the channel. So let's see. Pretty soon here, I'm going to be getting up our discussion of the music of the Zoroark movie. That's movie 13. We're going to be talking about that. It's on Anne's Patreon, so if you can't wait for it, it'll probably be coming out sometime next week or so. I would say check it out there. Anne and I, next weekend, she's been on vacation a little bit. Her schedule has been kind of hectic, so we haven't been able to record as much as we would like. You may remember a couple weeks ago, I posted a sort of a little ask for European Pokemon music. And we are going to be doing that discussion probably next weekend. And I had mentioned I don't want to spoil everything there. But we're going to be talking about, on my end, we're going to be talking about a number of things. One of them is this thing. Wait a second. No. That's... Oh, wait. Why doesn't it say 2000? So in countries where the second Pokemon movie did not actually show in the year 2000, rather than calling it Pokemon the Movie 2001, they call it Pokemon 2 The Power of One, somewhat, I guess you could say, confusingly. But don't know if you can see it on the stream there, but there's a person by the name of Tommy Thompson, which unfortunately we have not been able to find out much on biographically. Unfortunately, we're kind of I'm in a particularly bad spot because Tommy Thompson is also the name of the former governor of Wisconsin, where I'm from. So that probably doesn't help with my search results. And there's like a person from West Virginia, a musician, there was, I think he passed away in the early 2000s, but anyway, called Tommy Thompson. So that really just has sort of stonewalled us. I think Anne tried to look too. If you know anything about this guy, I think I'm going to look at the production credits and see if I can find anything in the next week or so on that. We would love some help. That is one of the songs we're going to be talking about. It's an original song, or original-ish. It might have been adapted, but I think it has some Pokemon references in it for the German version of the second Pokemon movie. Not sure if it replaced something else in the credits. I don't want to be too stereotypical, but I would think that the German audience would be very receptive to Weird Al's Pokemon, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Well, that's one thing. And then sort of the other place you get a lot of original different stuff is in Italy in Europe. And this might look like a very familiar cover. This is sort of the Italian equivalent of To Be a Master that was released in that country. So if we take a look on the back here, one thing I just noticed while I was looking through this. So first off, Italy would write their own theme song for like the first 10 seasons or so, up through like Diamond and Pearl. But you notice there's only 10 tracks here, and regular To Be a Master has 13. So I did some comparison. It looks like there's two different songs. There's Pokemon Ultra Ventura, and then Pokemon at the bottom. I think one of those is the original Italian opening theme song, and one of them is the Italian equivalent of Pokemon World, I think. And then there are 8 other songs, but obviously that means they cut off a fair bit. Obviously, they don't have the English Pokemon theme. I don't think that got localized until the first Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction, I think, is when that got localized, because by then they were using dubs of the English theme and the Italian dub. Let's see, at least in some cases. And then it's also missing, let's see, Misty's song, which is a kind of a curious submission. Everything Changes. Let's see, what else did I observe there? Now I'm trying to remember what the other two that were missing were. Oh, You Can Do It If You Really Try. And then, like, the other one that's missing is The Time Has Come. I'm surprised isn't there not an Italian version of that? Because, like, Time Has Come, of course, was used in an episode. I'm not sure what the status is in that, if they use a different song in that episode or something like that, or an instrumental or something. So that's kind of interesting. Anne is covering more of the Italian side. I'm also planning to bring up some remixes from a German soundtrack, video game soundtrack base. In Germany, they put out this soundtrack for Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium. They put out a CD soundtrack of that back there. And it has some bonus remixes. Unfortunately, I don't have any production credits on those, so I'm not sure who really made them, but they are all fairly interesting. You would have heard some of those on the station. And we'll talk a little about something called Poke Dance, which is, well, there's two totally different things. There's, I believe, a French song, and then there's some remixes of the Pokemon Dance mix by Vicky C. Robinson, which is what you will actually find on here. It'll sound a little bit different than the English released or the U.S. released version you might have heard of. But that's what we're coming on. And like I said, we still need some, if you have any information on who this German musician Tommy Thompson is, whether he did anything else, maybe he was usually involved in production, and this just happened to be the one of the few songs that he produced that got a lot of attention or something like that. Give us a comment on this, or the European music video, Ask video that we did a few weeks ago, because Ann and I we still have to record that, and just looking forward to it. But like I said, next thing up on this channel should be the discussion of the Zoroark movie music. I think we have some interesting observations there. I think I like the movie more than Ann does. Slight spoiler. But that'll be coming out relatively soon. With that being said, it looks like we do have one person in there. I will give them a brief chance to type in some questions or comments into the chat if they are interested. Let's see, were there any other little cards there? But going back to the pre-release, yeah, I did enjoy my time there. Would have liked to, like I said, had more people there. I think this was a very well-designed set from a pre-release / limited perspective. I think with that and like Mutant Draft and stuff like that, that's going to be a very interesting set going forward. So look for that at a major regional level or higher event near you at some point, perhaps. I did notice that they have kind of already started promoting the next set after this, so maybe they were expecting somewhat, at least within the sort of competitive player base, disappointing sales there, much like what happened with Mysterious Treasures, which actually sold very well as a set, but didn't sell very much to sort of the competitive player base. And I think I think Celestial Storm might be similar. One thing you should notice, I suppose, is that in Japan they have sort of let's see, where they have different. They have 3 sets a year compared to our 4. So I think this must be the 4th set of the year somehow. Not 100% sure. I think maybe it does pull from some stuff, but you kind of get the idea there. All right. Well, I think that's kind of going to do it for this live stream. Very much appreciate all of you who tuned in. Keep an eye on the channel. We're always posting up new stuff. I just recently posted a nice little outtake from my Simon Loveridge interview, and I love it was a nice little piece of trivia, but didn't quite fit into the main interview there. But other than that, all right, folks, thanks.